Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, by Daniel G. Amen, MD. Introduction. Imagine for a moment. You have a 9-year-old boy in your life. Maybe he's your nephew, your godson, or a friend's child. And he's a wonderful kid, sweet, happy, full of life. Then, one day, something changes. The light in his eyes seems to dim. He becomes withdrawn, aggressive. He starts drawing pictures of himself hanging from a tree, pictures of him shooting other children. He complains to his mother about wanting to die, and about wanting to kill other people. And then, one afternoon, on a baseball field, for no reason at all, he attacks a little girl. This isn't a story from a horror movie. This was the reality for a boy named Andrew. His family was terrified. This was Columbine, Aurora, Sandy Hook waiting to happen. His mother, Sherry, made a desperate call to her brother, a psychiatrist who was just beginning to explore a revolutionary new way of looking at human behavior. That psychiatrist was Drive. Daniel Amen. And what he discovered when he looked inside Andrew's brain would not only save Andrew's life, but it would also challenge the very foundations of how we think about mental health, crime, and even our own humanity. It's a story that reveals the single most important lesson from looking at over 100,000 brain scans. And that lesson is what we're going to explore today. For over a century, the field of psychiatry has operated in the dark. It's been the only medical specialty that almost never looks at the organ it treats. Cardiologists look at the heart. Orthopedists look at bones. But psychiatrists, they guess. They listen to symptoms, they look for clusters, and they make a diagnosis, much like doctors did in the 1800s. But Drive. Amen, a man his father called a maverick, refused to accept this. He started his medical journey not as a psychiatrist, but as an X-ray technician in the Army. His professors there taught him a simple, powerful question. How do you know unless you look? That question became the guiding philosophy of his life. He brought that question to psychiatry, and it started a revolution. His book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, first published in 1998 and since revised and expanded, has sold millions of copies and has been translated into dozens of languages. It's a book built on a single, radical promise. You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. And when you make your brain better, you make your life better. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this revolutionary idea. We're going to journey inside the human brain, exploring the hidden systems that control your moods, your focus, your anxiety, and your temper. We'll uncover why some people get stuck in negative thoughts, why others can't stop their impulsive behavior, and why some relationships are destined for conflict. And most importantly, you will learn the simple, practical steps you can take, starting today, to heal and optimize the single most important organ in your body. This isn't just about understanding the brain, it's about learning how to become a warrior for its health, so you can unlock your full potential and change not just your own life, but the lives of generations to come. Book summary. The story of Andrew, that troubled 9-year-old boy, reached a critical moment when he arrived at Drive. Amen's clinic. Drive. Amen knew something was deeply wrong. A 9-year-old doesn't normally have suicidal and homicidal thoughts. Most of his colleagues would have put Andrew on medication and sent him to therapy. But Drive. Amen remembered his training. How do you know unless you look? He needed to see what was happening inside Andrew's brain. He ordered a special kind of brain scan called a SPECT scan. Unlike an MRI or a CT scan that just shows the brain's anatomy, its structure, a SPECT scan shows its function. It looks at blood flow and activity. It tells you which parts of the brain are working well, which parts are working too little, and which parts are working too much. As Andrew's brain appeared on the computer screen, Drive. Amen thought there had been a mistake. The image was missing Andrew's entire left temporal lobe, a crucial area for memory, language, and emotional stability. A follow-up MRI scan revealed the terrifying truth: a cyst, the size of a golf ball, was occupying the space where his temporal lobe should have been, putting immense pressure on his brain. This was the source of his rage, his dark thoughts, his aggression. It wasn't a character flaw. It wasn't bad parenting. It was a biological problem. But getting the medical community to believe it was another battle entirely. Drive. A men called pediatric neurologists, experts in the field. One after another, they told him the same thing. The cyst was probably not related to Andrew's behavior. They wouldn't recommend surgery until he had real symptoms. Real symptoms? Drive. A men was furious. I have a child with homicidal thoughts who is attacking people. How much more real can it get? The neurologist replied, "Oh, drive. Amen. When I say real symptoms, I mean things like seizures or speech problems." This was the moment the scale of the problem became clear. The medical profession had disconnected the brain from behavior. They saw the brain as the source of seizures, but not the source of rage. Drive. Amen refused to wait until Andrew killed himself or someone else. He finally found a neurosurgeon at UCLA who had seen similar cases and agreed to remove the cyst. After the surgery, Andrew woke up and smiled at his mother for the first time in over a year. The surgeon later told Drive. Amen that the cyst had put so much pressure on Andrew's brain that it had thinned the skull. If Andrew had been hit in the head with a baseball, it would have killed him instantly. In 6 months, he would have been dead anyway. Andrew is not just a patient in a book. He's Drive. Amen's nephew and godson. And his story is the key that unlocks the central message of change your brain, change your life. Human behavior is not simply a matter of choice or character. It is deeply rooted in the physical health of our brain. This is the first and most important lesson. Your brain is involved in everything you do. How you think, how you feel, how you act, how you get along with other people. It all starts in the 3-pound organ between your ears. When your brain works right, you work right. You're happier, healthier, wealthier, and more successful. But when your brain is troubled, for whatever reason, you are much more likely to have trouble in your life. For decades, psychiatry has been trying to treat the mind without looking at the brain. Drive. Amen argues this is like a cardiologist trying to treat heart disease without ever doing an EKG or looking at an image of the heart. It's flying blind. Before he started using imaging, Drive. Amen felt like he was throwing medication-tipped darts in the dark at his patients. Sometimes he hit the mark, but sometimes he missed, and he unintentionally hurt people. He saw that diagnostic labels like depression, anxiety, or ADD are not single or simple disorders. They are symptom clusters, just like chest pain is a symptom cluster. Chest pain can be caused by a heart attack, indigestion, or a pulled muscle. You wouldn't treat all three the same way. So why do we treat all depression the same way? Drive. Amen shows us the SPECT scans of 2 different people diagnosed with depression. They had virtually the same symptoms, but their brains were polar opposites. One brain showed very low activity, it was sleepy and underactive. The other showed extremely high activity, it was over-revved and couldn't shut off. Do you think they would respond to the same treatment? Of course not. Giving a stimulant medication to the overactive brain could be a disaster. Giving a sedative medication to the underactive brain would only make things worse. This is why a one-size-fits-all approach fails so many people. By looking at tens of thousands of brains, Drive. Amen discovered that there aren't just single types of these disorders. He has identified at least 7 types of ADD, 7 types of anxiety and depression, 6 types of addicts, and 5 types of overeaters. Each type has a different brain pattern and requires a different, targeted treatment. This brings us to the second profound lesson. Your brain is soft, and your skull is hard. Your brain has the consistency of soft butter. It's housed inside a very hard skull that has many sharp, bony ridges. This means your brain is incredibly vulnerable to injury. Every time you hit your head, whether it's falling off a bike, playing soccer, or getting in a minor car accident, your brain can slam against those sharp ridges, causing damage that can last a lifetime. Drive. Men found that mild traumatic brain injuries are a major, and often hidden, cause of psychiatric problems like depression, panic attacks, ADD, and even homelessness and suicide. Many people don't even remember they've had a significant injury. He has to ask patients 5 or 10 times, asking specifically about falling out of trees, being in car accidents, or playing sports, before they remember incidents like going through a windshield or falling off a cliff. The story of Willie is a chilling example. Willie was a student with a bright future until 2 car accidents left him with what doctors called minor concussions. But there was nothing minor about what happened next. His personality completely changed. He became angry, irritable, and paranoid. He put on 70 pounds and became obsessed with food. His anger focused on his college roommate, who he began to see as an enemy trying to starve him. One afternoon, Willie took a meat cleaver and a butcher knife and waited behind the door to instantaneously dissolve his friend. A sane part of his mind knew he was out of control and he called for help. A SPECT scan revealed the truth. The accidents had damaged his prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that controls judgment and impulse control. It also damaged his left temporal lobe, an area linked to aggression, and it made another part of his brain, the anterior cingulate gyrus, overactive, causing him to get stuck on negative, paranoid thoughts. Willie wasn't a monster. His brain was broken. With a targeted treatment plan to balance these specific brain systems, Willie's sweet, humorous personality returned. He regained control of his life. How many people sitting in prison, labeled as bad, are actually people with treatable brain problems? This leads to the single most important lesson: drive. Men has learned from looking at more than 100,000 brain scans, you can change your brain. And when you do, you change your life. You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. And he can prove it. He shows us scan after scan of patients before and after treatment. A teenager with ADD, failing in school and cutting herself, whose brain becomes healthier and who starts getting A's and B's. A retired NFL player, whose brain was ravaged by years of concussions, who follows a Brain Smart program and shows significant improvement in blood flow, mood, and memory. Perhaps the most astonishing story is that of Nancy. Her husband Ray, a former NFL player, brought her to the clinic. She had recently been diagnosed with frontal temporal lobe dementia, a devastating illness with no known cure. Her doctor told Ray that within a year, she wouldn't even know his name. Her brain scan was, in drive. Amen's words, a disaster. But instead of giving up, they started an intensive brain rehabilitation program, the same one we'll explore in a moment. 10 weeks later, her follow-up scan showed dramatic improvement. Her memory and cognitive function were better. 5 years later, Nancy still knew Ray's name. They had become brain warriors, fighting a war for the health of her brain. This concept of being a brain warrior is central to drive. Amen's philosophy. We live in a world that is constantly trying to damage our brains. Food companies design addictive, toxic foods. The news pushes horrific events into our minds over and over. Gadgets work to addict us and interfere with our relationships. To be healthy, you have to fight for it. You have to have the mindset of a warrior. To be a brain warrior, you need to understand the battlefield. The book takes us on a tour of the 5 major brain systems that run your life. Think of these as the main control centers in your head. First, we visit the limbic system, the emotional core of your brain. Located deep in the center, this is where you process your emotions, form bonds with others, and store your most charged emotional memories. It's the seat of love and depression. When your limbic system is healthy and calm, you tend to be positive, hopeful, and connected to others. But when it's overactive, it's like a filter that colors everything with negativity. Sadness can take over. This is what happens with depression, or even with severe PMS. Drive. Amen tells the story of Michelle, a nurse who, in the week before her period, would become so irritable and irrational that she left her husband 3 separate times. On the third occasion, she attacked him with a knife. Her SPECT scans showed that during that time of the month, her limbic system was blazing with activity, hijacking her emotions and turning her into a different person. With treatment to calm this system, she was able to regain control. The prescription for an overactive limbic system isn't just medication. One of the most powerful tools is something drive. Amen calls ANT therapy. ANTs are automatic negative thoughts, the cynical, gloomy, and self-critical thoughts that just pop into your head and ruin your day. Thoughts like, he's going to leave me, or I'll never be good enough, or this will be a disaster. Every time you have a negative thought, your brain releases chemicals that make you feel bad. But every time you have a positive, hopeful thought, it releases chemicals that make you feel good. The key is to recognize that your thoughts are not always the truth. They often lie. ANT therapy is about learning to identify these negative thoughts and talk back to them. When you think, my boss doesn't like me, you challenge it. I don't know that. Maybe she's just having a bad day. By challenging these ANTs, you take away their power and begin to cool down your overactive limbic system. Another simple prescription is gratitude. Focusing on what you're thankful for literally changes your brain for the better. Next, we journey to the basal ganglia. These are large structures that help integrate feelings, thoughts, and movement. Drive. Amen has found they are also critical in setting your body's anxiety level. When the basal ganglia are overactive, you're more likely to feel anxious, nervous, tense, and to predict the worst in every situation. This is the source of panic attacks. Drive. Amen shares his own experience of having a panic attack in the green room at CNN before his first national television appearance. His heart raced, he felt like he couldn't breathe, and he wanted to run out of the studio. But he remembered what he tells his patients. He used 4 simple steps. First, breathe. Slow, deep, diaphragmatic breathing sends a powerful calming signal to your brain. Second, don't leave the situation. Running away only teaches your brain to be afraid. Third, write down your thoughts and challenge them. Kill the fortune-telling ANTs. He was thinking, I'm going to forget my name, and 2 million people will think I'm an idiot. He talked back to these absurd thoughts and disarmed them. And fourth, if needed, use calming supplements or medications. These prescriptions, especially deep relaxation and hypnosis, help soothe the overactive basal ganglia. From there, we move to the front of the brain, to the prefrontal cortex, or PFC. This is the most evolved part of your brain, the CEO or executive control center. It's responsible for focus, forethought, judgment, impulse control, organization, and planning. It's your conscience, the part that supervises your behavior and helps you learn from your mistakes. When the PFC works well, you're effective and goal-directed. When it's underactive, you struggle. This is the core problem in most types of attention deficit disorder, or ADD. Drive. Amen's research was groundbreaking here. He discovered that for many people with ADD, the harder they try to concentrate, the worse it gets. A SPECT scan shows that when they try to perform a concentration task, their prefrontal cortex actually shuts down. This is why telling someone with ADD to just try harder is like telling someone who needs glasses to just squint harder. It doesn't work. They have a biological problem that needs support. People with low PFC activity are often inattentive, distractible, disorganized, and impulsive. They may say or do things without thinking, struggle with procrastination, and make the same mistakes over and over. Many also unconsciously seek out conflict. Yelling, arguing, creating drama, these things provide a jolt of adrenaline that temporarily stimulates their underactive PFC and helps them feel more focused. They don't do it on purpose, but they become addicted to the turmoil. The prescription for a low-functioning PFC involves things that boost a neurotransmitter called dopamine. This can include stimulating supplements like green tea or rhodiola, or stimulant medications like Ritalin or Adderall. A higher protein, lower carbohydrate diet is also crucial. But one of the most powerful psychological tools is a goal-setting exercise drive. Amen calls the one-page miracle. You take a single sheet of paper and write down exactly what you want in the 4 major areas of your life: relationships, work, money, and yourself. You look at this page every single day. This simple act keeps your PFC focused on your goals, guiding your daily decisions and actions. Then we go deep into the middle of the frontal lobes to a structure called the anterior cingulate gyrus, or ACG. Think of this as your brain's gear shifter. It allows you to shift your attention from one thing to another. It gives you cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt, see options, and go with the flow. When the ACG is overactive, which is often linked to low levels of the neurotransmitter serotonin, you get stuck. You get stuck on negative thoughts, like a rat on an exercise wheel. You get stuck on negative behaviors. You hold grudges. You become rigid, argumentative, and oppositional. You worry endlessly. This is the brain pattern behind obsessive-compulsive disorder (OCD). We meet Gail, a woman trapped in the private hell of OCD. She cleaned her house for hours every night. She screamed at her family if anything was out of place. Her brain scan showed her ACG was blazing hot. With treatment to boost her serotonin and calm this part of her brain, she was able to relax and reclaim her life. The prescriptions for an overactive ACG involve boosting serotonin through smart carbohydrates, exercise, or supplements like 5-HTP or Street. John's Wort. Psychologically, the key is to learn to recognize when you're stuck, and then consciously distract yourself. Get up, do something else, and come back to the problem later. Finally, we explore the temporal lobes, located on the sides of your brain, underneath your temples. These are your memory banks. They are involved in understanding language, storing long-term memories, and controlling your temper and mood stability. The left temporal lobe is often linked to language and logic, while the right is more involved in recognizing facial expressions and emotional tone. Problems in the temporal lobes can lead to memory issues, mood swings, irritability, and aggression. Because of their location near those sharp bony ridges in the skull, they are very vulnerable to injury. Drive. Amen's research found that in people who had assaulted others, over 70% had abnormalities in their left temporal lobe. We meet Blaine, a 60-year-old man who was moody, aggressive, and had memory lapses. He would see shadows and hear buzzing sounds. When he was 5, he had fallen headfirst onto a pile of bricks. His SPECT scan showed significant damage to his left temporal lobe, likely from that childhood accident. With an anti-seizure medication to stabilize this brain region, his temper, dark thoughts, and strange sensory experiences went away. Treatment for temporal lobe problems often involves stabilizing this area with certain medications or supplements, practicing anger management, and consciously creating and focusing on a library of wonderful memories to build a positive personal history. Understanding these 5 systems reveals why so many people struggle. But what happens when multiple systems are involved? That's where Drive. Amen's work on the different types of disorders becomes so powerful. Take ADD, for example. We've talked about classic ADD low PFC and overfocused ADD low PFC plus an overactive ACG. The treatment is completely different. Stimulants help classic ADD, but they often make overfocused ADD much worse, increasing the worry and rigidity. This was the case with Cody, the 8-year-old boy who became explosive and suicidal on Adderall. His brain scan showed he had overfocused ADD. He needed a treatment that would boost his dopamine and his serotonin, not just one. Similarly, there's temporal lobe ADD, with temper and memory issues, limbic ADD, with chronic sadness, anxious ADD, with tension and nervousness, and the ring of fire ADD. where the entire brain is overactive and stimulants are almost always a disaster. The same principle applies to anxiety and depression. There isn't one type, there are at least 7, each with a different brain pattern requiring a different approach. You can have pure anxiety overactive basal ganglia, pure depression overactive limbic system, a mix of both, or types complicated by problems in the ACG, temporal lobes, or PFC. This is the missing link that explains why so many treatments fail. We've been treating symptoms, not the underlying brain patterns. Drive. Amen's method is about identifying the specific pattern and then personalizing a 4 circles treatment plan. This means addressing the issue from every angle. 1. Biological. This is the physical functioning of your brain and body. It includes targeted supplements or medications, nutrition, and exercise. 2. Psychological. This is about your mind and your thinking patterns. It includes therapies like killing the ANTs. 3. Social. This is about your relationships and your environment. It includes spending time with healthy people and learning communication skills. 4. Spiritual. This is about your sense of meaning and purpose. It involves connecting to something larger than yourself. With this knowledge, you have a blueprint for becoming a brain warrior. It's a 12-step program for reversing illness and exploding your potential. It starts with developing brain envy. You have to love and care for your brain. Get to know it. If possible, get it scanned, or at least take a detailed assessment to understand your vulnerabilities. Then, you must know and reduce your risks. Drive. Amen provides a checklist for Alzheimer's risk factors. Things like head injuries, alcohol abuse, depression, obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes all dramatically increase your risk. Eliminating these risks is a core part of the warrior's way. Next, you must eat right to think right. The Brain Warrior diet is not about deprivation, it's about abundance. It's about choosing high-quality, clean foods that fuel your brain. The rules are simple: drink plenty of water, focus on lean protein and smart carbohydrates, eat healthy fats, eat from the rainbow of natural colors, and avoid sugar, processed foods, and anything artificial. Food is medicine, or it's poison. You choose. You must also work your brain and your body. Lifelong learning creates new connections in your brain. And physical exercise is the single most important thing you can do for your brain's health. It boosts blood flow, reduces stress, improves mood, and helps grow new brain cells. You need to soothe your stress, protect your blood vessels by avoiding things like caffeine and nicotine, and reduce inflammation. And you must be smart about supplements, using them to target your specific needs. Finally, you must build a team of people who support your health, and you must know your motivation. Why do you want to be healthy? For your family? For your career? To fulfill your purpose? Find your anchor image, a picture of someone or something you love deeply, and post it where you can see it every day. This is your why. This is the program that has helped thousands of people, from everyday individuals to professional athletes. The most exciting part of the research on NFL players wasn't just finding the damage, it was proving that it could be reversed. With this program, 80% of players showed significant improvement in brain function, memory, and mood. If these men, who subjected their brains to tens of thousands of violent collisions, can heal their brains, imagine what you can do. The final message of the book is one of immense hope and personal responsibility. We are not just victims of our genes or our past. The brain is a dynamic, changing organ. The choices we make every single day, what we eat, how we think, who we spend time with, how much we move, are either hurting our brain or helping it. The story of Andrew is not just about a boy and a cyst. It's a question about the very essence of who we are. Was the real Andrew the violent, angry boy, or the sweet, kind one who returned after his brain was healed? Drive. Amen believes the real us is the best version of ourselves, the person we are when our brain is working right. The journey of changing your brain is the journey of becoming who you were always meant to be. Commentary. As we wrap up our journey through Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, it's worth pausing to reflect on just how profound this book's central idea really is. For generations, we've been taught to separate the mind from the body. Mental problems were seen as failures of character, willpower, or spirit. They were something to be ashamed of, to hide, something that made you crazy or weak. What Drive? Daniel Amen did was take that stigma and shatter it with science. By showing us the pictures, the actual images of how conditions like depression, ADD, and OCD affect the physical organ of the brain, he reframed the entire conversation. He turned mental health into brain health. And that simple shift changes everything. Suddenly, these aren't moral failings, they're medical problems. An overactive limbic system isn't a sign that you're just a negative person, it's a biological issue, like high blood pressure. An underactive prefrontal cortex doesn't mean you're lazy, it means your brain's CEO is asleep at the wheel and needs support. This perspective doesn't offer an excuse for bad behavior. Instead, it offers an explanation that leads to a solution. It replaces judgment with compassion, and hopelessness with a clear path forward. The most powerful lesson for me, and I think for anyone who reads this book, is the incredible sense of agency it gives you. You are not a passive victim of your brain's wiring. You are the chief architect of its future. The concept of brain envy, the desire to have a better brain, is a brilliant psychological tool. Once you've seen a healthy brain next to a damaged one, you can't unsee it. You start to ask a simple, life-altering question before you make a choice: is this good for my brain, or bad for it? That one question can change the entire trajectory of your life. It makes you think twice about the junk food, the extra drink, the all-nighter, the negative thought patterns, or the toxic relationships. Because now, you understand the stakes. You're not just making a choice for the moment, you're making a choice that either builds up your brain reserve for the future or depletes it. If there are a few simple actions you can take away from our time together today, let them be these. First, become an eater. Pay attention to your automatic negative thoughts. Just for today, catch one of them, write it down, and ask yourself, is this thought really true? Challenge it. You'll be surprised at how much power you take back. Second, feed your brain. You don't have to change your entire diet overnight. Just add one brain-healthy food today. Have a handful of walnuts, add some spinach to your meal, or eat a few blueberries. Every small healthy choice is a vote for a better brain. And third, move your body. Go for a brisk 20-minute walk. Exercise is the quickest way to boost blood flow, release feel-good neurotransmitters, and clear your mind. It is truly the fountain of youth for your brain. Change Your Brain, Change Your Life is more than just a book about neuroscience. It's a manual for living, a roadmap for taking control of the very organ that creates your reality. It teaches us that our brains are not fixed, and therefore, neither are our destinies. That was a summary of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life by Drive. Daniel G. Amen. We've explored the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you dive into the book yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple prescription clicks with your own life in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to give you a map, to help you decide if this journey is right for you. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a curiosity or a glimmer of hope, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning facts, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, your struggles, and your potential. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the world's most transformative books, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.